Greetings, welcome back to Game Design. This is Lesson 7, Sprites. In this lesson, we're going to learn one of the most important pieces of the game lab, right? So in this case, there's going to be a few programming concepts, but one of the big pieces, this sprite and the way it works is unique to Game Lab. I'm sure other programs have similar things, but this is what Game Lab does in order to store all this information. So make sure to watch these two videos as you're going along. Right? I'm not going to play them. I'll have links for you. But this really goes over some key pieces of what the sprites are, how they work, in addition to what I'm going to go over. But essentially, sprites are what make this allow us to be able to do the game part of the coding, right? So as we go through, we're going to learn some things that are specific to Game Lab. Maybe other game engines have stuff similar to them, but again, it's essentially game engine specific coding versus coding, right? So with that, we're going to jump right into our lessons and then kind of work our way through, and then you're going to do the practice just like the other lessons. So with that, the very first level is kind of looking at this new stuff. We now have these new blocks. So kind of look at what they are. Remember how the blocks work as well. The XY parameters. So we have our fruit, and then we have create sprite, 100, 200. What does all mean, right? Well, remember var creates a new variable. In this case, we're putting a sprite into it. Now, eventually in programming you'll learn what all of that means, but for now this variable is a sprite. With a location of 100, 200, right? And then we have fruit.setAnimation apple, vegetable, create it, again, XY. So when we run this, we have 100, 200. Well, that's right here. That's the apple. And then we have vegetable, 300, 200. So 300, 200. And then it's a carrot. Now, it is important to remember as we go through this, just because I could call this apple, right? Now I do need to change this, and we'll see this a lot, right? Because they'll call sprites, whatever, there'll be a bunch of different names, and down in the code, you need to make sure they all match up, just like any other variable. But the key is, right, if I call this apple, apple, I call it fruit, fruit, whatever I set the animation to is what it's going to be. Now we'll spend time eventually going back here and learning what all of this is, right? And as you go through the videos, right, this video particularly spends a lot of time, so you really need to watch the video as we go through. It kind of talks through some of this. But that's it, right? That is the basis of the sprite, right? You got to create it. This tells it where it's going to start, but as we move forward, we'll see that we'll be able to change it, right? The whole point of these sprites is being able to do all that. So again, go ahead and pause this video, or if you've already watched it, right, watch this video. This will go over the basics, but basically says that, it starts off as a square, and then you're going to be able to do more, right? So we're first going to talk about the square concept, the first few, and then as I showed you in the animation, we'll get to some animation later on. So we'll just jump right on to the next level. Wait for it to load, right? So this is just practice, right? So on this level, again, as a reminder, try to do this by yourself, but as a level, you need to grab in the sprite, and then if you run this, it doesn't do anything, right? That was another piece. If you watch the video, you can actually draw sprites. Now, you only ever really run this once. And as we learn to get stuff to move and stuff, it's important where you put this. You'll see that, again, with layering, right? If I run this, right, I didn't create the sprite when I draw them, so again, just like all of it, the order of it matters, but that's it, right? I can tell this to start in a different spot by changing that. All right, so 50 over. I pick 50 because if it's 0, half of it would be off. Do notice sprites are the center. So remember, rectangles, when you do a rectangle, which I don't have the toolbox for that, when you do a rectangle, right, it's at that top corner. Circles are in the center, and so are sprites. So when it's 50, 200, right, that's right there. So that's another important thing to remember about these. All right, we'll move on to the next one. level 4. In this case, again, it matters. Kind of showed this already when you run it. It's supposed to have two sprites. You have a left sprite and a right sprite. The right spot's not drawing. Well, it's because we drew the sprites before we created the second sprite. So run this again, and now they're both there. All right, so we have our left sprite. It's created. Right sprite, and then we draw it. All right, one more before we just getting over the basics of the sprites. You'll notice again they're all is that set animation, right? So we're going to play around with it a little bit, right? So this is where we actually get to see stuff, but you'll notice that only one of them actually has an icon, right? Because this just creates the square, like I said before. So what we need to do is we need to actually set the animation for every single one of them. Now I'm going to go ahead and do it under each of them. It just keeps it organized, it's sanity. So you'll normally see when I do this. Now the other piece you need to do is go ahead and copy, because if I run this, right, they're all going to be the bottom sprite, which you'll probably see that as an error. Moving on, hint, hint, right? But they do need a match, right? So this is the top sprite. This is the top right sprite. Again, I'm just copying these over so they match up. And again, another reason to have them lined up is so I can see that each of them has their own animation. Now, if I run this, they're all going to be the alien. Now, for a quick second, I'm going to jump out of blocks, because there is one nice thing about blocks is it will show you everything that's here. The other thing, there's going to be a video in a second that you can watch. You know what you can call them by this, right? So if you have to type it, I highly recommend that you use a name that it's easy to type. So like this one's easy enough. I can type in bunny. But the other ones, I kind of already forgot what they were. So flybot, I just call it bot. All right, that makes it easier. And this is red plane. I'm just going to call it red, right? So again, now I can go back in here, and then the other two, I can just call this one red, and this one bot. Oops. And again, if that was show text, right, there is no drop down in the JavaScript, so you have to type it all. So that's a good reason when you're doing JavaScript, you want to keep these fairly simple because you have to type that. Now, if you completely forget, you can jump into blocks real quick and do the drop down. Again, the point of this is to do it all in JavaScript. So we run it, and now we have them, each of the different things. And there's so many different things. We can change the size as we go through all this. We'll learn all kinds of property stuff. But for now, right, that's how you create them. Tell them where they're going to start. This is where they start. And this is setting the animation. So we have a little start right there. All right, again, the video is going to spend a little bit more time on the animation tab. We will get into it a little bit. But you watch this video, it'll go over to change them, flip them, color them, draw your own. But we'll talk about some of that stuff as well. We're going to a couple more practice together before I send you off to go to practice by yourself. All right, when we run this code, right, first thing we run this code, we'll notice that the order matters. Surprise, surprise. This is what we've already kind of saw. The draw sprites are already at the bottom, so we're good with that. One thing to look through some of this is, all right, we have message. It's drawn way in the back, right, because this, and then this goes on top of it, and this goes on top of it. So the first thing I'm going to do, I know I need to Control X this and paste it down here. Right? So I know I need that. However, the other piece is not necessarily in the wrong order. We have drink, and if you notice, this is something that's nice. When I highlight it, it highlighted these two. Well, this is drink, this is drink. So what it's doing is drink is becoming soda, and then drink is becoming ice cream. And this is why I also do, put it on top of each other. So we have drink and drink, but we have dessert and drink. So therefore, what happened was drink was set to soda, and then it was set to ice cream. And then dessert was set to nothing. So simply, by copying dessert and pasting it here, we fixed all the problems for that. The problem wasn't that these were in the wrong order. It was the fact that it was changed to soda, but then it was changed to an ice cream. And that's why you had ice cream over here. But now the soda stayed a soda, ice cream becomes ice cream, and we have the correct picture. One more, and then you're on your own. So in this one, what you're going to do, so again, do this first. I'll go over the answers, but go ahead and do this first. And pause. All right, now that hopefully you've had this done, you can go ahead and look at this. So this draws the sprite right away. So there's no sprites created. So that must be this one, right? Draw the sprites. Nothing was created. Sky blue did a dog, and then this. Now it says dog, 100, 200, but it didn't actually make it a dog, right? So that's this one. And then the next one is we have the dog and the elk, and then draw sprites. So that's this one. And this one we create the dog. We actually set the animation for the dog, but we don't actually create the elk, so that's that one. All right. So with that, again, take the worksheet, do what it tells you to do in here, go through the assessment, do the challenges, do what the worksheet tells you to do there, fill out the question for the question of the day when you're done with it all, and we'll see you next lesson.